we launched Fiesta ST, I think it was at Frankfurt show. The images got sent over to me, and I just put something on our Facebook channel about, look, don't often talk about product on this channel because we know it's all about the event, but thought you might be interested in this. It went nuts. Here's why: because we've had over 30,000 likes of that post. We've had, over 10,000 shares. That's worth something.
Hi, it's me again, and yes, it's unedited. And if you've just tuned in from the last episode with Will May, you'll know exactly what we're about to talk about. Will May is the partnerships and media lead for Ford Motor Company. And in this very special extra edition, we're just going to talk for a short amount of time about partnerships, the use of AI in the Ford Motor Company, and a bunch of other stuff that I think you're going to find fascinating, especially if you listen to the full episode from Will that's already dropped. If you haven't, you can listen to this one on its own, or you can listen to that one first and come back. But the most important thing, as we always say on the Unedited podcast, is sit back, relax, and get ready for another unedited conversation. So, welcome back to Unedited. In my world, it's about, 30 seconds since we finished the last episode. In your world, it could be months. I don't know. But this is an extra episode that we're dropping with Will from the Ford Motor Company because there was just too much to pack in. And I think there's a couple of other things we wanted to talk about, Will, if you're happy to do so.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So, just for context again, give us a very short version of who you are in case they didn't listen to the last one.
Yeah, Will May. I'm the paid media and brand partnership manager at Ford of Europe.
Now, in the last episode, we dug into partnerships big time, the role of partnerships in the world of marketing and what good looks like. And there was tons of great stuff in there, but there was a couple of bits that we didn't get to. And I thought one of them was about how partnerships offer a really authentic, real-life experience of a brand. And when you get those activations right, what you're looking for in that. So you talked about a couple of examples of partnerships with other brands, with other people like Ken Block, and also the Red Bull one in Italy that you guys are starting to look at. So one thing I want to touch on is how you make that an exemplar of the brand and how you go around that. And the next thing I wanted to tie into was, in a world where increasingly there is some homogenization, we're seeing a lot of AI being used across the motor industry. It's all on as marketeers and creatives. We had a really good conversation before we came on here about a good example of an applied use of AI, which is really interesting. But I think it plays into that conversation about finding the point of difference, making sure you stand out, and how that ties back to those sort of partnership pieces. So to kick off with, when we're thinking about those partnership activations, when you really get it right, how do you bring the brand to life in those? How do you make sure that your message or Ford's message resonates, is visible, and doesn't just become another sponsorship?
So I think, one of the best examples is the partnership that Ford of Britain had with Goodwood, actually not too far from here. And, that is the place, isn't it? That is the place in the 4 Ps effectively, and where people can experience the brand, for real, actually. And so, if you look at the Ford's presence historically at that event,
at the Goodwood Festival,
Goodwood Festival, Festival,
which is, for context, it's probably the most well-known non-sport motor event. It is sport. Is it sport?
Yeah, I mean, it is
enthusiast.
It is definitely. It will attract motorsport fans. So it's very much in that space. Let's be honest.
But I might go as well as a non-rigid motorsport.
Yeah, I think you would, because it's a
my
great
wife
event.
Might go and have strawberries and have a nice time and all that sort of.
Definitely
the Wimbledon of the motorsport world, baby.
Yeah, but that's where that partnership comes to life without a doubt. So it's everything, isn't it, about the stand, the people you meet, are they knowledgeable? And that is critical in terms of people getting a favourable impression of the brand.
So
without a doubt.
Everyone knows. If you don't know, I think it must be one of the most known brands on the planet. So everyone thinks they know Ford. And and you see all the different adverts, and there's stuff dropping all the time. But then I'm a punter, I'm at Goodwood Festival of Speed. What am I going to experience, and what are you hoping I take away from it?
So hopefully you get an inkling or a feeling that Ford is actually an exciting brand. And, all the data points to the fact that we are trusted, but probably a little bit boring. And, there are things that, are a ticket of entry. Safe is probably a better word. Yes, safe. Now, actually, that's actually really important.
It's a really good place to be in.
So it is good in many respects because
no one's going to buy an exciting, dangerous car.
Yeah, and I mean,
not many.
And someone said to me, look, this is by no means gospel. It's anecdotal. I accept that. And they said, yeah, but I probably know with Ford that they're not going to sell my data to the Chinese government. And you're thinking,
trusted.
I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about it, but it was quite an interesting
And we're talking, and when you think about that now, Louis, our friend Louis and Lurking in the Shadows, told me that his dad tried to pick up his brand new swanky Range Rover today, and they can't get them off the forecourts because they've got technology issues. And you start thinking, God, technology, the level of data, the level of access, if you get it wrong, people can get in your car and drive your car away.
Yeah.
So that is starting to become even more. You never thought a car company would be associated with data and privacy, but actually, of course it would.
It is.
Tesla's so connected as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is actually going to be really important. How do you talk about it? I mean, crikey, we could talk for an hour about how do
we can't. We've got half.
We can't. We have. Yeah. You're right.
We've already done an hour.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. How do you major on that? Because actually, it'd be interesting to do some research to understand how do customers, what are they thinking about? Are they aware of it, or are they not aware of it at all? But anyway, let's not go down that avenue.
Send us in your views if you've got if you want another episode.
So back to Goodwood. I mean, historically, the key thing and the really interesting thing for me was how are our drivers, our motorsport drivers, integrated into that experience. Okay. So, how do we use them to really make that stand come to life? And it was really fascinating seeing the Ken effect on our stand because Ken Block. Going back.
So if you listen to the last episode, you'll hear a lot about Ken Block.
Yeah,
but a really exciting, dynamic personality.
Exactly, and I was responsible for getting him from one place to another,
and you couldn't move him.
Oh my goodness, it was.
Well, he's super recognisable because he's branded to the hilt. He's a big guy as well.
He's quite tall, yeah.
He's not a wallflower. I wouldn't say.
So, and the stand went nuts when he was on it. So
what a great feeling as well.
Brilliant. We would have autograph signing.
So how do you make sure I remember Ford and not Ken Block?
That was the challenge.
How was Goodwood? Great. I saw Ken Block. Where'd you see it? No one asked. Where'd you?
That was the kind of worry bead that was in our head all the time. It's like, that's great, but what's the takeaway for Ford?
And I think anyone that's dealing with influencers, ambassadors, celebrity endorsements, that is the fear. You tick the box because the boss gets to meet them. Yeah. But then how do you make it pay on the bottom line?
And I think choosing, and to broaden out the discussion, though, as you say, those influencers that actually can be trusted and actually love your brand. I think that is the real challenge. Now, with Ken Block and with Vaughan Gittin Jr., who was a drift driver, similar guy, nowhere near the same profile as Ken, but a really interesting guy. And we did some super stuff with him. Also at Goodwood, they loved the product. They loved Ford, and that came across in everything that they did. So to your point about
partner with people that actually get you.
That is
not just want your money.
Yeah.
And we touched on that last time, and it is so hard because if you're listening to this and you're looking at partnership opportunities, and how do I make this authentic and actually make me stand out? I think that's often the nub is the talent that you're bringing in going to do that for you? Or are they just going to stand there, collect a paycheck and go at the end of the day?
Yeah.
How do you test that?
So it's really tricky, actually.
Look them in the eye?
I want to, yeah, yeah, you do. It's a conversation. And actually listening. I mean, it was just so interesting. If we take the example of Ken or Vaughan, just listening to their backstory and their view of Ford and what they wanted to do and why they would do it. I mean, it was just fascinating. And you could just see, yeah, they mean it. They mean it.
I think also if you've got a relationship where both parties genuinely stand to benefit, I mean, not just financially, but profile-wise and technology-wise. And we're running, there's another client partner of mine that's partnered up with Red Bull, but they're partnering up they make engineering and manufacturing and enablement products, which are sort of world leading, and they're using those in it's a demonstrative example of the technology. It's not Marlboro sticking a logo on the back of a spoiler and then that's all you need to do. I wouldn't say gone are the days, because if you get enough visibility of a brand and logo, obviously that's going to work. But if you're on a budget or you're trying to do something intelligent, then you've got to connect that partnership deal with something beyond just the logo and the pennies on the person.
Definitely. And I mean, I remember one conversation that I had with Ken, and he said, I just love the fact that Ford want to do loads of things with me. And he was with Subaru before, and he just, nothing could land, and
give us an example. He'll go, can I do a donut in a Ford Galaxy?
For example, I mean, yeah, I mean, the big
that
one...
That might be a bit extreme.
Yeah, but. The big one was him helping us to launch Focus RS in 2016.
Yeah.
So he was intimately involved in that process. There's some really cool stuff with some filming around the plant in Cologne where that launch event was held, and then it was times that then he would drive into the studio and
skid into the studio and do...
It was super cool. He loved it. And I can remember, I mean, it was really quite touching because he said, well, this has been brilliant. I love working with you. And that was brilliant because...
Well, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does, because you felt that, we were benefiting massively from that partnership, but so was Ken, because he was doing what he believed was cool stuff. Now, fast forward,
Well, just sorry to stop you, but if your brand is enabling someone that's already uber cool, that's already doing some of the coolest stuff. I mean, the guy created DC. I mean, I was a skater back in the day. He's already cool, and he's saying Ford are making him look cooler. Who would have ever thought that would happen?
Yeah,
that it's enabled that. So that's quite
it was brilliant.
I mean, an eye opener.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, the day when that relationship ceased, I was really that hit me actually quite hard because of all the stuff. And all the stuff we'd done. He died. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? And I mean, I remember my wife saying, Ken's dead, and I was like, you are kidding me. And it was, because I remember all those things that we did, which were not expensive, super cool, great metrics.
Just an innovative guy that's trying different things.
Yeah. Now fast forward 7 or 8 years to the sort of broader brand partnerships that I've been working on, and trying to find those partners, that kind of same working relationship.
You might never do that.
No,
is the truth.
Exactly.
Because you're talking about aligning with an individual that can make his own choices about his own personal brand, whereas probably a lot of the other things that we all look at in our industry, typically they're brands with multiple decision makers, different voices in the room, making a decision's hard. So it makes it slower probably to get those decisions, those ideas. But it's a bloody good one to have in your portfolio.
It is, and I've had some really interesting discussions with potential partners, and they've engaged their creative agencies to pitch, look, this is how you could bring this to life, and that's been key, because it goes back to you're saying just stick a logo on something. It's like, well, that just doesn't wash. But actually, how could we bring this to life in a way that would resonate with consumers or make consumers think, actually, you know what, that's pretty cool, you know?
And I think you can, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, how do I do that? I don't have the bandwidth. Use your creative partners. Use people that aren't doing the day-to-day. Every marketing leader, CMO, all the way through to marketing manager has a list, the length of, well, it's a never-ending list of stuff. So how do you just take some of that off that list? And that's when you should use externals, or you should use other people in your team that can give it the focus and really think about, okay, well, if I was going to, what are the different angles on this? And we've got some tools now that we didn't have even 5 years ago that can help you look at precedents and examples. So if you're using AI, you can draw conclusions from things that have gone before in different ways. And just trying to plan that out and show to someone like you. We talked on our last conversation about how you convince people. That's half the battle in itself, just trying to conceptualize how that partnership might look, so it doesn't just look like a spend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, having some concrete examples about how a partnership could be activated were really key. It's kind of difficult for me to talk about because, you know, there's some really interesting exampple, but which didn't go anywhere. So I'm kind of hamstrung because I can't
talk
say
about those. Yeah.
Yeah, but there were, you know, a couple of partners who, as I say, brought creative agencies on board, and they said, look, these are different ways in which you could potentially launch and activate this partnership. You know, using the rights that you're buying, this is what you could potentially do, which did help in terms of pitching internally. You know, as it happened, not successfully, but
you've still got to do it.
It's crucial because actually the activation, as you've intimated, that's the key. That is the key. And you know, I mean, I was visiting various events, you know, from these potential partners and trying to think, oh my goodness, how do we turn up in a way that doesn't interrupt consumers' experience of the event, does it in a way that's natural, that people just think, yeah, actually, I get why Ford is here. Or delivering something that enhances that whole experience.
I agree with everything but your first point. I'll do everything I can to interrupt the normal operating procedure of that event, which might be a bit naughty, but
no, I think that's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean,
half the battle is just to stand out at something like Goodwood or a big exhibition or a big. And if you can find routes around that, and the activating bit is just, we could do another hour on it, but you know, if you're booking an exhibition. Do you think you've succeeded because you're at the exhibition? No, you haven't.
No.
Like, how are you going to connect the dots? What happens before you get there? 3 months before, 2 months before, 1 month before, the week before? How are you using it as a VIP place? How are you inviting your customers there? What happens at the event? How do you nick all their PR opportunities? How do you jump on their social media? So often people don't even touch the surface of what's possible, and you think, well, all that is a bit. It's a bit more focus and activity once you've made the decision to do it. And I think if you're a marketing leader and you're making a decision about a sponsorship, an event, an activity that is a significant spend, a campaign that's, you know, if you're not looking at how you activate all of that big idea, then you're going to come a cropper. You're not really going to get the
you're
legs
absolutely right. And I mean, you've articulated it better than I did. I guess what I was that first point was about, you know, how do you turn up in a way that just isn't vanilla or just
so hard,
not noticed? So, you know, you could do. I mean, I saw some activation. I was just thinking, who cares? Honestly.
So everyone here. So if you said who cares, they get sick of me. So, but that's my. Who cares is a really good question to ask.
Yeah, the so what
question. Until
you
people get really pissed off with you, and you go, who cares? Or like my son does, why? Well, keep saying why until you get to the point where that actually means something.
Yeah, I mean, not a partnership example, but it takes me back to a conversation that I had with a director of marketing many years ago. I'm not going to name them, and but they were always questioning the strategy or the activation around our World Rally Championship team. And I remember I think it was in October, and we launched Fiesta ST, I think it was at Frankfurt show, and the images got sent over to me, and I just put something on our Facebook channel about, look, don't often talk about product on this channel because we know it's all about the event, but thought you might be interested in this. It went nuts. And I just went up and I said,
why? Because it was different for everything else, really.
Here's why, because we've had over 30,000 likes of that post. We've had, over 10,000 shares. That's worth something.
It's commonly the thing that people underplay the most, as we've talked about before, the activation and the trying to find your point of difference. And it kind of segues nicely into this other subject that we were talking about. Here's the hypothesis. In a world of increasing homogenization, how do we keep our point of difference? Now, this is the same if you're a B2B brand. You might be, what you wouldn't have heard on this episode, you listen to the other, is you started off as an accountant. If you think about the big accountants, PwC, who is your original employer, Grant Thornton, all of those, KPMG, what's the difference? It's the same in that world as it is consumer products, and you might argue that something like a car or a vehicle has far more opportunity to be different and have its own unique world. But my point that I was putting to you that I'd love your take on is, are things becoming a bit samey in that market, and how can we fight for a point of difference?
I think it's really difficult, and I'm thinking immediately around, with electric vehicles and the charging of electric vehicles and how that is handled. And, you've got one example of Tesla about how that's kind of one space, if you like, and how they manage that seamlessly. It's different for us. For example, we do have something called the Blue Oval Charge Network, but there are other charging networks as well.
As someone without an electric vehicle, how is it different to a customer?
It's massively confusing. I'm confused, right?
I don't get it.
I'm really confused. And I was talking to, again, it's not a representative sample, but three friends have all got electric vehicles. And they said, well, don't even bother with that. I just take my debit card and I swipe it against the machine and I charge. I know I pay more, but you know what? It's so much easier than joining a network. I'm having to then find the card. He said, I'm happy just to swipe my card and pay. And I was like, that was really interesting to me in terms of how are consumers thinking about this issue of charging, and what are we doing? Now, I'm not working in that area of Ford, so I'm not an expert in it. But it was really interesting to get that insight as to how three customers were approaching that.
I mean, the observation from, and I'm very much outside it, but from the manufacturing point of view, is increasingly a lot of the cars start to feel similar. They sound, they obviously don't sound, they don't make a noise really, but the chassis are being shared between manufacturers and OEMs. So, and it's not just electric. That's been going on a while. So there's different factories that build different vehicles for different OEMs. And I think Peugeot has the same car in different brands, and obviously VW Group have multiple versions and always have, Seat through to Golf. But there's just in the manufacturing there seems to be a difference. And then when we think about how we're marketing it as marketeers and creatives, there's been a huge increase in, first of all, heavily doctored images around vehicles has always been the case. You want to make it look as fucking amazing as possible. And now AI is obviously coming in to really sharpen up and speed up production. And there's loads of brilliant benefits about that. And we were talking earlier, and you had a really good example of that in action, in terms of the benefit from a production point of view of creating images from AI. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, with something we were for the benefit of the people listening who weren't party to our conversation. So I was in a team meeting last week, and one of my colleagues was presenting a range of advertising assets which are coming to a screen near you in due course, which were done using CGAI. And, they were talking about, the benefits of this in terms of, the logistics compared to a traditional shoot. And obviously the the cost
Huge
as well.
savings, I'm sure.
And they are it's stunning. It's a stunning selection of assets, and it's very well done. Immense flexibility. The markets. Across Europe can use either a 2-car range shot, 3-car range shot, 4-car range shot. Different. They can change the colours. So incredible.
And a conversion off for all the different channel uses you've
Yeah.
got. Big, large format through to social, through to digital, all that.
Crystal clear, amazing images. And
I said to you, just to be fair to you, but doesn't everything start to look the same? There's this aesthetic that sort of comes across all of that. And I think it's, as someone that would have organised one of those shoots in the past, maybe not at quite that level, but it is a huge logistical, there's whole teams that are dedicated to doing that. And just like in the film industry, obviously there's some conundrums and thoughts about the impact of that on jobs and the people that are doing that work. But also more important to me, from a customer point of view, there's a challenge in identifying, if you took the logo off, and you're looking at distance, and it's already happening, and it's not just in the motor trade. It's across a lot of industries. But I think cars are really easy one to put together. Take the logos off. I think you're starting to struggle to get any differentiation between a lot of that stuff, and these sort of very broad, hopefully European-wide or worldwide catch-all taglines that hope that it could. Are we starting to lose sight of what the customer really needs in that instance?
I think the honest answer, the marketer's answer is, I don't know.
I think that is an honest answer. The proof will be in the pudding.
Exactly. It's then, and I would have, if you'd have asked me that question before I did that Mark Ritson mini MBA, I'd have been off on, well, you got to consider this, this, and this. It's like, you know what? No. The proof is what the customers think. Do they notice it? Do they act on it? Do they click? Does it sell? Yeah.
And the problem you've got there is there's loads of factors for why something sells. What will be definitely bore in mind is just the production cost of that, and the ease and the joy. And I wonder whether we're at a time at that high level, and you're experiencing it at a level that I'm not. So, and I'll give you an example of how we're using AI in a practical implication as well on a campaign in a moment. But what does that free up budget-wise, time-wise, thinking space, and how could that be reinvested into authentic partnerships, into authentic events and moments where I can get my hands on the product, where I can experience the authentic joy of driving one of these vehicles, not just, and I think maybe it will be an enabler for that and a shift in where that budget comes. But the example we talked about earlier is we put into the market one of the first campaigns that was almost completely AI driven in terms of certain aspects of that. So the ideation around the creative, the concept work, the storyboarding. We use the tools that are available to everyone in the market now to speed up that and to help decision making and to help identify and test those ideas. We also used AI to speed up the creation of variations of adverts later and that sort of stuff. But the actual core idea and the core creative, we made the decision to remake it in the traditional way, or certainly aspects of it. So parts of the image work in this are AI, and the hero parts of it are real. And it was a really interesting process, and it allowed us to spend a lot more time and effort on that headline image because we'd done those other things. Is it perfect? Is it what we're going to do moving forward? I don't know either. And I think we're two guys like everyone else in a podcast talking about AI that haven't got a bloody clue. But what we are starting to see is real applied use. And it's going to be really interesting I'd love to hear in the future and keep in touch about what the impact of that was on that launch, because I guess it's going to be over the next year that sort of flows out. It would be fascinating to see if they're able to quantify the impact of that decision over any other, and whether from a commercial and a point of view that means that they're able to do different things because they didn't do that. And I think that's what's on a lot of people's minds at the moment. If we are using it for that, what does it allow us to do elsewhere?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, I think at one point, being able to develop those assets more quickly and to change them more quickly buys you time further down the process in terms of placing media and being much more responsive about where you place and what you
and the
place.
Targeting that's been really useful for me because already
that still takes time. Making the assets is just one part of it. Actually the real hard work in terms of your media strategy and where you place what is really key, and it does buy you time further down that process. And then I mean, I think that cut through. I mean, I think that's where the metrics are going to tell us, well, is it effective or not? And then thirdly, well, where does that money get used? Does it get used elsewhere?
Or does it just not get spent?
Are
we cutting our overall costs and therefore the expectations on the customer? Does that saving come through to the customer? Does it not? I mean, these are all things that are playing out as we go. But then there's also the legalities. There's also sort of the creative, the fees that might be due to people that could have worked. We talked about sound, and we talked about voiceovers, and we talked about a number of different things previously. And as is many of the podcast chats about this, we can't give you an answer, but we can give you indications of what we're trying in commercial situations in an agency that's delivering tons of creative work at a high level of speed and at value, and in your instance in one of the biggest motor companies and one of the best known brands in the world. So I was fascinated to hear that applied piece of work, and you're already I would love to see, I wonder by the time that this launches, if we let you know and it is out by that time, we'll put the link to the advert in. Maybe if it hasn't, we won't. But there you go.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, it'll be imminent. So I'm sure that'd be really interesting to see.
So to round off, this was a special edition. We're going to keep it to sort of half an hour, which we're at already, and we could talk for hours and hours, of course. But leave us with a bit of advice about partnerships and about how you drive that. If you were going to talk to some marketing leaders out there who are looking at it for this year, what's the three things or a couple of things they've really got to focus on?
Well, I think the first thing is make sure that your basic marketing is being done properly before you start looking at partnerships and sponsorships. That's the first thing.
Know your P's.
Yeah. Definitely.
Not many do now.
Definitely. And it's not 6 or 7 P's, by the way. Just let's leave it to 4. That'll do, right? That
Pick which 4 you like.
Which one? Yeah, which 4? Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. But I think then it is that partnership matrix, as I call it, the scoring. Okay, what questions are you trying to answer? What is this? What are partnerships intended to deliver? And that you use that rigorously to evaluate potential partners, so that you come up with a short list of partners that can give you an advantage in the market. You can borrow their equity or whatever you happen to be your objectives, but to do that effectively.
I think that's pretty good advice. Any others?
No,
he's going to go for it. He wasn't sure. No. Listen, Will, I really appreciate you giving us this time today. It's been fascinating. There's loads of stuff that you can find out about partnerships online, and what we will do is that we'll put a load of links in the show links below the message as well, so you can have a little look at some of that. If people want to get in touch and are interested to talk to you, are you happy for them to do so through LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely.
Use your thing. Okay, so all that is left is for me to say for a second time, Will, thank you for joining us on the UnEdited podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on another episode of UnEdited. Make sure to like, subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Find all of our updates on your favourite social media and podcast platforms. Just search for the UnEdited podcast.